Welcome to another session of building your text set. So the several sessions that you will see following will have different sections. This first section is going to be finishing up your text set design. So I wanted to show you this template is a template that you can change up, and you're looking at my Titanic text set that I've been building, and I want you to know that I like to put my orientation as landscape. Your template that I sent you is in portrait. By all means, switch the template up. Move the tables as far as size to fit your needs. I like landscape instead of portrait. And then I adjusted the columns. Please don't change the order of the tables. Keep those the same. So when we last left off, we selected our standards. We looked at, how to build an introduction of the unit. But usually our introductions come last. And I'll show you what I mean in another session. But let's focus on stage 1 and finish working with stage 1. How do I go from my standards to my objectives and long-term transfer? Well, if you take a look in the previous module where we started talking about the text set, and in your additional readings, you're going to see what's called scaffolding tools. So I'm looking at my scaffolding tool for 6th grade. And I use the scaffolding tool to help me build the remaining of my stage 1. If you go through the scaffolding tool, you'll see how it is organized. Here you have the standard. In gray, that's actually the Anchors standard. And this is the Mississippi College and Career Readiness, which mimics the Common Core State Standards. Here you have the 6th grade vocabulary for the wording for that standard compared to the Anchor standard. Then if you look, you have the prerequisite knowledge, like what should the students come to you being able to do. And if not, this is a great way to help remediate or differentiate for your students in serving their needs of where they lack knowledge. This is what they should understand. Okay? And what's the conceptual understanding here? And then here is the evidence of the knowledge. So when it says your objectives and long-term transfer, well, here in this section, that's where you want to focus on your objectives and spend some quality time thinking of your objectives. You do not want to put a percentage. You use percentages in math, but not in language arts. We use words like proficiently or accurately because most of our items that we assess, we either use a checklist or we use a rubric. Every now and then, you can use standards. If it's like a multiple choice and those kinds of things, not standards, you can use percentages of correct. So when you work to build your objectives, they have to be measurable, observable, and you have to have action verbs. For example, do not use the verb understand. You cannot assess if the students understand something or not. So do not use the verb understand. What you can look at will be the Bloom's taxonomy, looking at the different standards. And I'll try to put something up for Bloom's for you, but that's something you should already have in your previous courses. So let's take a look at my standards so I can start building my objectives. If you notice, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because we can put those together, different standards that I want to focus on. And it's RI 6.1, RI 6.3, And so let's focus on that. So here it says, what are your objectives based on your above standards? So I'm simply going to leave that italics, and I'm going to put RI 6.1. I know I'm doing that one. RI 6.3. So take it in small chunks. Let's look at RI 6.1. It says cite textual evidence to support analysis of what the student says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. So if you take a look over here, it says the students understand the authors purposely include specific details and are examples in literary text. If you notice, I'm looking at literature, how it kind of, you see literary, that's a common mistake. Don't spend your time here. Remember, you're focused on information. So scroll down. So I purposely did that. So you can see, because that's a common mistake that all beginning teachers do and veteran teachers. So here's where you need to be. And you know this is right because it says informational text. So I don't want to see an RL standard in there. I want to see an RI. All right, the students understand the author's purpose, including purposely include specific details in informational text, and actually omit specific details and examples from informational text to prompt students to ask questions about the text. But look at the evidence. This is what's going to actually help you write your standards. Students closely read and analyze an informational text to comprehend what the author says explicitly, to discover the layers of meaning that are often embedded within complex informational text. And then you can continue to go. And here it says, analyze explicit and inference, textual evidence, generalizations, accurate, and concepts. So, let me help you with building this. For example, here I want the students to cite textual evidence. Now, everything here you're going to change once you start building your lesson sketches in stage 3. But you want to kind of get an idea of what does that look like. Well, I want them to be able, in whatever informational text we read, in all 4 lessons, I want them to be able to cite evidence. I want them to be able to analyze an informational text. And I want them to read closely, because that's something I've already taught them. But if your students have not been taught how to read closely, then you're going to have to model before you can go in that. But my students have. So I'm going to say the students will read closely to analyze an informational text analyze, okay, and read closely, right? So I may want to change that. Read closely and analyze. Analyze is an action. So think of your actions. So students will read closely. So they're going to read closely. That's my action. And they're going to analyze informational text. Well, what does this look like? That's something I can observe. I can observe the students reading closely. I can observe them actually analyzing an informational text. So what does that look like? Well, that simply looks like I want them to be doing that proficiently. Okay? And so right now I'm going to put the word proficiently. Okay? So think about measurement words and what you can put in there as far as measurement words. And that's something that you should previously have. If you reply back to me or email me or let me know that that's not a knowledge you don't have, then I can help out the class, okay? So then we have RI 6.3. And I'm not going to walk through all these for you, but I just kind of want to give you where we're going. Then we have a speaking and listening. So SL, and I think I have 6.2. And I have RI 6.4. And we can put all the RIs together. You can put all the, because that's our vocabulary. And W 6.2. And I'm specifically focusing on A. And so that's something that I want to make sure I focus on. And then I'm going to have my history standard last, because I want you to remember you're teaching a language arts classroom. So your language arts objectives need to be the focus. That's why you see history is last. And so that standard is CR HR 6. Okay? Done. Well, what does this look like for, let's do a speaking and listening. So you continue to scroll down. And let's go to a speaking and listening. All right, well, let's go to writing. Writing's first, I'm sorry. And in writing, I want to look here. They provide, I'm going to get there in just a minute if I wouldn't go so fast. So notice they break it down, okay? Here is your writing, the standard here, okay? And that's the anchor standard. But if you go back down, all they're going to do is provide the anchor standard here for you, but they're breaking down those writing techniques here, okay? So this is what the standard looks like for 6th grade 2A, where we're focusing on topic, organization, ideas, and concepts. Here's what the students should already know. Here's what they need to be able to know, their conceptual understanding. The topic must be presented in the introduction. Ideas, concepts, and information should be organized for audience and purpose. Then here it says ideas can be organized using different methods. Okay? Well, right now, I know based on my pacing guide that I need to be focusing on topic must be present in the introduction. That's something we're really focusing on in this lesson. And here, look at the evidence. Introduce a topic that is clearly developed. Okay? That's the evidence. That's what you're observing. That's how you write your objectives. So here I'm going over here and I'm going to say, for my writing standard, the students will introduce a topic that is clearly developed. That's it. Introduce is something that you can see. Like you can see, did they introduce the topic? And then clearly developed. Well, that's a measurement. Okay? Now, if you scroll down, you see some key terms here. Informative, explanatory, introduce, topic, so on and so forth. All right. Now, this is what I want to focus on. And these will change as I get into stage 3 of this planning, okay? You may add more information to it. All right. Let's do a speaking and listening one. Sorry, it's so slow. You know, I probably could use the scroll button or the page button. But I kind of want you to see all the document. All right, speaking and listening, and I know I'm focusing on 2. Now, here's 2. And it says interpret information. This is the Anchor standard. This is the 6th grade standard from diverse media. Here is what they should know. Here is the conceptual understanding. So right now, we're having a hard time for students to look at media, like they're always thinking of text as being media. So the students should understand diverse media and formats refer to the different types of media formats. Well, I want them to see some visual formats, but what does that look like? So if you get kind of confused over here, go to your evidence. Do I want them to explain the main idea and details of the information? Do I want them to participate in discussion of how information presented in the diverse medium formats contributes to? Yes, that's me right there. That's what I want to see. Okay. So that's what they're doing. That's the evidence that they're putting all this together, and here it is. They're interpreting information that requires students to attend closely. And that kind of goes back with my read closely here. So now I'm going over here to the speaking and listening standard, and I will say the students will participate in a discussion of how information about the Titanic and information in diverse media about the media and formats about the Titanic contribute to the topic. And how will they do that? What does that look like? Because you don't see a measurement there. You just said they'll participate. But how are you going to rate this participation or assess this participation? So you have to think about that. So let's go look at the verbiage here and the rating. It says here, integrate and evaluate information presented in diverse media, including visually and qualitative. Well, we really don't see any measurements there. And then it says interpret visually, quantitatively, contributes. So I've really got to think about my measurement. It's okay to put right here, add measurement. Don't spend too much time trying to figure out the measurement. Or you can simply put proficiently. And what does proficiently look like? Okay? So I'm going to put proficiently. And you can use successfully. And I'll get you some measurement words. Okay? So you'll have those. You'll do the same thing for all of your other standards. Use your scaffolding guide. Okay? Look here. Analyze in detail how a key individual event is elaborated in the text. Well, that goes quite well with what we're doing in our speaking and listening standards. So if you come to find out that a standard does not go well, change it. Now is the time to make those changes. All right, what to do next? What kinds of long-term independent accomplishments are desired? Okay, and it says when your students leave that grade level, graduate high school, become college students, begin careers, share in their profession, start in their professions, what accomplishments should be desired for students to be successful when a future learning challenge arises? So here's what I want them to do. I basically want them to be able to, and I'm just going to follow my standards. Students should independently read, I'll I like successfully. Should successfully, because you don't have to have visual measurements. You're making a prediction of long-term independence. Should successfully know the process, because we don't want to use understand, of know the process of reading closely and the analysis of diverse informational text. Okay? And I can continue going. Speaking and listening, students should successfully participate in a group, small or whole or large, that's better, discussion, knowing when to take turns and to listen. Okay? Now, notice when I'm writing this, I really haven't focused on my standard. Yes, I know they need to take turns and listen, but I also want them to take turns, knowing when to take turns, to listen, and use the diverse informational text or media to support the discussion topic. Now, see how that's very general? What somebody should do, maybe in a professional setting. Now, go here. I notice I'm always going to revise and edit. I want to put diverse here because we're going to be reading diverse informational texts proficiently. And remember, I'm going to come back and really tweak these as to be specific to my lessons. But that gets me started. And here are my desired outcomes. Begin thinking about that. Okay? All right, so that is how to do your objectives and long-term transfer. Let's go through your meanings. Okay, how will the students use, oh, that's a typo, use and apply the literacy skills in any learning situation? Okay, what specifically do you want students to understand about the literacy skills? And what inferences should the students make about this literacy skill? Okay, this right now, based on what I've written, because I'm going to delete that in a minute, but I want to see the questions. Well, how will the students use and apply literacy skills in any learning situation? Okay, the students will read closely when facing any informational content. Well, I'm just going to say any informational and diverse type of text. That's what I want them to do. They are supposed to read closely. Okay? I also want them to analyze. So you see how I'm breaking down my objectives? The students will analyze. I'm going to say we'll analyze any informational text, any informational and diverse type of text. Okay? That's what I want them to know. And you can keep going. Here it says, what specifically do you want students to understand about the literacy skill? Well, then you're going to have to think about, what does reading closely look like? And then what does analyzing look like? So What do those look like? Well, students read closely, and see how I'm putting it with this? Students read closely by reading and making annotations, or what we call text codes, and making text codes while reading the text to track their thinking. That's what it looks like. And I can even say what specific text codes, okay? And then what emphasis should students make about this literacy skill? Students should infer this literacy skill can be used in any content area and for any text. Okay? And right here I may say making text codes. I had to remember I have a picture. And so they may be making text codes on the text or on sticky notes, because that's what I use. Alright, and there's the could. Okay, so that's just what one understanding looks like. And then you go to your essential questions. It says what naturally formed, thought-provoking questions will foster inquiry, making meaning and transfer of the literacy skills. Notice you don't see anything about history here, okay? I want you to focus on the literacy. We're using history to break it down and go through, and you need to put a standard for your history or your science. But that's not what you really need to focus on here. I want to see the literacy. Think about the literacy. So what naturally formed, thought-provoking questions will foster this inquiry? Well, if I want them to analyze and read closely, one thing that comes to mind is, how do historical readers, or you can say how do good readers, or how do scientists read closely, read history closely. See how you're doing that? That's easy. That's something you can do. Those essential questions where you can put up for the students to see. Okay? See, and look right here. I got you some question starters. How, why, what does this mean, what if, all right? So now watch. What does analyze diverse text mean? Because you're going to talk about the different types of text that you're presenting and how to analyze that. So that's how you can do that. And when you're finished with all of these questions and stuff, delete this italics, okay? It's no longer needed. It's there to help you. Those are guiding questions. So there for your support, okay? So the next item, and of course this is not a completed unit, you will have the knowledge acquisition. Don't worry about stage 2, you're not there yet. We'll do that in the next segment. Students will know. And it says, what facts and basic concepts of the literacy skills should students know and be able to recall? Okay? So going back to my one here, and I like to label these. You can label it or not. It's up to you. So if you decide to label each breakdown, that's good. Okay? Because you can say, okay, this ties with RI 6.1. RI 6.1, because I want to make sure that I have evidence enough to say this is where every standard is focused in all of my planning. Okay, so students will know. So deleted that. And I just totally forgot. Okay, you're going to the basics. That's basically what it is. So basically for RI 6.1, well, what do they need to know? And I like to list. They need to know different types of text. They need to know the steps of reading closely. Okay. And then they need to know not only the steps of reading closely, but they also need to know how is reading closely for informational text different from fictional, if I could spell today, text. Okay. They also need to know the different text codes and when to use those codes. They need to know underlining, important facts, important ideas or facts. And the list could go on and on and on. Here it says, what distinct and basic literacy skills should the students be able to use during this unit? It almost sounds like it's redundant, but it really wants you to think about, well, what's the skill? This is the knowledge, right? This is what they're going to gain, but then they're also going to gain that skill. So, what skills? Well, the skills will be, they will be skilled at, how to approach each or many types of informational text when asked to read. Okay, you're going to teach them that. We're going to teach them how to, they're going to be skilled at how to, or when to underline important information and determine what is important within the text. And you can keep going and going and going. Okay? That is all of stage 1. Stage 1 is really, it may sound redundant, but it's really making you get bit by bit. Also, if you notice, I'm going to use my scaffolding for that. It has a lot of language. Look right here, the prerequisites. They should be able to summarize a written text orally. And so here, what do you want them to do? So you can use the language within your scaffolding. It's a tool for you to use that will help you. Before you do anything else, grab your scaffolding tool, grab your text set, and finish working on stage 1. I hope this has been a helpful video for you on how to complete stage 1. Stay tuned for how to go through stage 2. Thanks. See you soon.